Hello, everybody. Happy spring. My mug is on theme today. I'm Nick. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. Today, we are going through our Q1 stats. That is everything that I read from January to April, also everything I didn't read. I really like doing these wrap ups because it gives me an opportunity to kind of reflect on how my reading has evolved, not just during the quarter, but also from Q1 last year or even Q4. I can kind of dig into analyzing what has been working for me, what hasn't been working, and then plan for some Q2, Q3 goals accordingly. So, in general, I like to use Storygraph the most when it comes to tracking my reading. I am also a big fan of Fable. I really love the graphics and the fun little animations that they have sometimes. The only thing is that because it's also almost like a social media feed, I find Fable can sometimes be a little overwhelming. Storygraph is the straight shot, it gives you everything that you need. Plus, it's got a phenomenal buddy read system. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. Okay, so the big question, of course, is how many books did I read in Q1? As a slow reader, I read 12 books. My overall goal for the year is 60, so I'm actually pretty on track. I'm happy about that. Also, another one of my big 2026 goals is to DNF more books. Last year, I read way too many books that I really didn't want to finish, and I regret not letting them go earlier on. So with that, I am proud to say that in Q1, I DNF'd 6 books. I let most of them go between like the 20 and 40% mark. Okay, let's talk a little bit more stats here. My top genres of Q1 are LGBTQIA+, and horror. Now, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I love quarterly stats. Compared to Q1 last year, this is very different for me. Q1 last year was solely literary, contemporary, with like the occasional thriller, the occasional romance. This tells me just how much I've changed as a reader and what I am now prioritizing. In terms of genre, a goal of mine for Q2 is to continue to read more horror, but I would also like to add in maybe a different format now and then. So, whether that's like a graphic novel that's horror or short story collections that are horror. If you have any recs, let me know in the comments. In a similar vein, my top mood for Q1 was dark and reflective. I promise I'm okay. Moving on. My average star rating for the quarter is a 4.17. What? Okay, last year I didn't have a single quarter that was anywhere near a 4. Like the average quarterly rating for me was always like a 3.14, maybe a 3.5 on a good day. This is just really reassuring for me because it really shows that I've honed in on what works for me, really, what kind of genres I enjoy the most. I also now have some auto-buy authors that I didn't even know about last year, and that is just going to continue to bring up that rating. Now for the fun stuff, we're going to get into ranking all 12 books that I read from lowest to highest. Now, while the top 5 was not very difficult for me to choose, I read some bangers this quarter. I found all the other ones a little bit difficult to rank because they all kind of sat between that 3 and 4-star radius. So for those, I'm going to rank a little bit more around like how they've stayed with me, how they've aged, I suppose. Okay, so in 12th place, we have Orbital. I liked this book. I thought it was fine. I think I went into it with such high expectations because it won the Booker Prize in 2024, I believe it was. This is about a group of astronauts who are in outer space, and the entire time they're just reflecting on Earth as a planet, but also the humans who live there and what's happening to society, to the climate in general. It was a great reflective read, but I felt like it was almost more documentary style. Plus, I read it through audio, which I already have a hard time focusing on. So the fact that it was almost like stream of conscious in my ears, like, to be fair, I know I'm not the only person that feels this way, but it did win a Booker Prize. So I'll leave this one up to you whether or not you think you should read it. In the 11th slot, we have Automatic Noodle. Now, this was fun. Okay, this was a very, very fun read. This is about a group of robots who in a dystopian world have kind of been abandoned by their owners, and their owners owned a restaurant. When the robots kind of get turned back on, they decide to start running this restaurant. I'm kind of getting tired of like the robots have feelings trope, so I was kind of turned off immediately with this book. But what I did love about it is the Chinese culture that was kind of woven throughout. The kind of restaurant they open is a noodle shop, and more traditionally a Xi'an or Shanxi noodle shop. And as someone who lived for a few months in Shanxi, this was so nostalgic for me. So I loved that part of it. It was also like a nice, feel good, shorter read. This is definitely a maybe to a yes. I think the biggest deciding factor would be whether or not you're kind of numb to the robot has feelings trope. In the 10th slot, we have Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. This is the sequel to Legends and Lattes. I'm a huge Legends and Lattes fan. I like Baldree's work in general, and I liked this book. The only reason why I ranked it a bit low for me is because I made the mistake of listening to this book instead of reading the physical copy. And like I mentioned earlier, I have a hard time focusing when it comes to audiobooks. Like, why did I choose to do it on a fantasy novel? I don't know. If you liked Legends and Lattes, this follows the same kind of recipe. It's a sweet, cozy mystery, a little sapphic. There's a little bit of romance in there. I love the quirky characters, the whimsical characters, and of course, we're still following Viv, our favorite orc. I don't know if I would suggest this as a standalone because something I loved so much about it was following Viv again, who we meet in Legends and Lattes. Plus the ending, there's a few little like Easter eggs that link to Legends and Lattes. So plot-wise, it works as a standalone, but I think you get a little bit of extra if you read this second. In 9th place, we have You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. Again, I liked this book. It was like a good 3.5, you know? I have to say, I liked the idea of this book more than the execution. I have a full review of this book on my page, but in general, this is a dystopian novel that follows some form of like alien insect cult. We follow Crane, who's a transgender man who's being forced into seeing through his pregnancy. So the overall like metaphors in this book are outstanding and very, very timely. I also must say, I think I'm one of the only people who didn't love this book. Again, I loved the concept and I really liked the writing style. It's very gory, checks all of the boxes for a great body horror, which I appreciated. I just didn't find myself cheering on any of the characters. In the end, I didn't really feel anything, which is wild because I'm a big crier and like a lot of people are crying at the end of this book, but I just wasn't, which told me I just wasn't bought in. I also had a lot of questions about the world. There's a big lack of world building in here. So if you're someone who requires context, especially when it comes to dystopian heavy novels, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're looking for like a good body horror that definitely has some fantastic social commentary, I'd recommend it. Hey, in 8th place, we have The Lost City of the Monkey God. This is nonfiction. I read this at the very beginning of the year. This follows a journalist from National Geographic who goes on this expedition to find this lost city that no one has found in like thousands of years. The exploratory part of the book is interesting. I mean, I definitely got a little bit of ick due to the lack of like indigenous voices and indigenous considerations of it all. But what I did kind of appreciate is like the whole second half of the book kind of calls them out on it and also links this like colonization, this stealing to a disease that ends up following them home. like serves you right. So that whole ending ends up being a little bit more about the study of ancient diseases and how we've come to see them in different parts of the world where it really shouldn't be, and how colonizers and ancestors of colonizers are not immune to these diseases due to them being in lands that aren't theirs. So it definitely turned things around in the end. In general, I just really like nonfiction that keeps me engaged, where I get to learn a lot as well. There's a lot of Honduran civilization history in here, but also political history, which I really appreciated. If you're a nonfiction fan, especially when it comes to history and or archaeology, I would definitely recommend it. In seventh place, we have Dirty Diana. I read this on my e-reader, but immediately ordered the physical copy. This one I was not expecting to love as much as I did. It is a little bit more of a romance, but with some literary thrown in there. I would compare it to Wedding People, if you've read that. This follows a woman in her, I want to say, mid to late 40s who's in a pretty unhappy marriage. And one day she ends up finding these tapes that she recorded like back in university when she was writing articles on women's sex lives. And while she revisits these tapes, we get a taste of her life back then. It's a very nostalgic read, which I loved. It's also a little spicy, which is always fun. I just thought this book was really well laid out. The romance aspect of it only comes in like more than halfway through. So the first bit of it, you're really getting to know her past, her current marriage, and what she's feeling. So you're really bought in. I really liked our main character. I know there's a couple more books in the series, and I can't wait to check them out. In sixth place, Who Am I? Another romance. I finished this up in early January. It was originally a Christmas read, Merry Little Meet Cute, by authors Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. This was wonderful. I am not a big contemporary romance fan, but this one checked all the boxes for me. We've got plus size representation. There's a lot of really progressive commentary on female sex workers. And we've got some queer main characters. This follows a group of like Hallmark Christmas romance actors as they're filming in this like really romantic Christmas town. It's very sweet and quite spicy. So just know that going into it. Okay, now we're heading into my top 5. So these were all bangers. Every single one of them is an absolute yes for me. I think everybody should read them. I ranked all of them between a 4.5 and 5 stars. So in 5th place, we have Minor Chorus by Billy Ray Belcourt. This is on the short list this year for the Canada Reads competition. This follows a young queer Cree man as he leaves his academic journey about halfway through in order to pursue writing a novel about his Cree community in northern Alberta. It's told in a very interview vignette style, which I really liked. It worked very well as an audiobook. The prose are stunning, perfect, so poetic. I cannot wait to read more of his work. In the 4th place, we have Beautyland. I did a vlog where I read the end of this book, so feel free to check it out. But this hit so hard. I think this was the first book of the year to make me cry, which to me is always like an automatic 5-star rating. In this, we follow an extraterrestrial who has been sent down to Earth to report back to her creators what she notices. So similar to Orbital, we kind of explore an outsider's view of society, of the world in general. What I loved most about this, however, is that at no point throughout the book do we actually know if she's actually an alien or if this is something that she herself just believes. So if you are a fan of unreliable narrators, this is up there with like the chlorines of literature. So good. Absolutely loved it. And there's some one-liners in here. Like if you read this, you're going to want to annotate. Sorry, I mean, when you read it. In 3rd place, we have Walking Practice, which I just finished last month. I also have a real-time reading video of this up on my page if you want to check it out. This is pretty short. It is a South Korean body horror novel. Very gruesome. Check the trigger warnings if you are new to body horror. This was wild. I read it in one sitting and found myself staring at a wall after. I had no idea how to feel. I still don't really know how to feel, but I will say there was a lot of feelings. So to me, it was very successful in doing, I think, what it set out to do. I'm looking forward to sitting with this for a while and then coming back to it with a new perspective where some of the events that take place aren't as shocking because they won't be new to me. So that maybe I can just take a broader view of all of the beautiful and powerful metaphors throughout. There's already some tabbing here, but I feel like I didn't even catch half of it. If you are looking for something chaotic that will most likely get you out of a slump, I'd highly recommend this one. In second place, we have Among the Burning Flowers, wonderful Samantha Shannon. This is the novella that takes place halfway through A Day of Fallen Night and Priory of the Orange Tree. This is my first time ever reading a high fantasy series, so maybe I'm biased. Like maybe, this is like your first love, you know what I mean? But I just think the characters in this fantasy are outstanding. I love strong female sapphic characters. And I liked that this was a novella, and I do feel like it's a standalone. Her other two books are quite hefty. You're looking at least like 1,000 pages with multiple maps, multiple glossaries. But if you're looking to kind of discover Shannon's work without committing to that, I think this would still work. It's also very user friendly. There is a map in front, there are some glossaries in the back, but because you're dealing with a much shorter plot line, they're less intense. If you like dragons, if you like sapphic fantasy, if you're looking for something that isn't romantasy but still has a very like engaging plot, also has a wide, diverse range of characters and voices, this is it. And finally, in first place, we have The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. This I have been working on since November, okay? But don't let that deter you. I have a really hard time with historical fiction in general, okay? And because this does kind of follow a historical fiction pace, I just had to set it down regularly. With that being said, I was reading at least 100 pages in one sitting. And let me tell you, the last 20% of this book is some of the most fast paced reading I've ever experienced. The way I was bought into this book, it's so funny because I look at like You Weren't Meant to Be Human. And I think to me, that was like a much more immersive read. I was like wanting to pick it up more often. The plot line was really gripping. This didn't necessarily have that until the last 20%. But the biggest difference is that immediately I was bought into these characters. Immediately I knew who they were. I knew where they came from. I knew what their surroundings were. And I knew their why. I knew why they were doing what they were doing. And that's just something that I need in a novel. So this hit all the marks for me. I think this is absolutely a modern day classic. Everybody needs to read this. I don't say that often. This is the number one book of the quarter, a big contender for the number one book of the year. This follows a young boy of 11 or 12 years old who has been wrongfully arrested for abusing a white boy. We're in 1950s Florida here, and he's brought to a reformatory school for boys. Do with that as you will. Think of the worst thing that could be. It's worse than that, okay? When he arrives, his journey at this school is helped and guided by Haints. Now, Haints is like a bit of a new concept for me, but they're essentially like little spirits that come from a lot of African diaspora cultures down south of the United States, I believe. And even though they're not purely malicious, they will often play tricks, mind games, and they can be evil spirits occasionally. And usually it's only children who can see them. So this boy is seeing them in the reformatory. He's learning about the ugly past of the reformatory. And then we follow him and these Haints throughout. It's incredible. It's chunky. You can do it, okay? So that's a wrap for Q1. Q1 2026 is also when I started this YouTube channel. So I also just want to say a big thank you to everyone who has been interacting, who is subscribed to my channel, who are commenting, liking, sharing. Everything is so helpful. Even just watching a video is wonderful. So thank you so much. YouTube has absolutely become my favorite outlet for sharing all things bookish, and I'd absolutely love to prioritize this space more. So all of your interaction just really means so much. As always, let me know what you've been reading. What was your favorite read from Q1? Until next time, happy reading. Now for the fun part, to put all of these books away. Ugh. Okay, where am I going to put you? I don't have space on my bookshelf.